Okay, just to clarify, we are going to leave this amendment lying on the table until next week. So it's not, so you will have an opportunity to vote on this next week. So it's left lying on the table.
Okay, so we're going down the...
So does that mean that we can vote on the rest of them at the end of this session and just that one comes out?
Yep. Moving on down, just about all of them have got... Oh, here we go. On page 8, number 37, Councillor Templeton, is there a seconder, please? Yeah, right. Councillor Coker is seconding. Page 8. At top of the page.
Donovan.
Okay, and down the bottom of the same page, number 59, Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, Melanie Coker.
Councillor Coker
Sorry, can I just
is the seconder, is it? Yeah, Yanni.
59.
One. He said that you were, so you are.
I just Councillor Johansson, this was another one you indicated could go into the CD, unbudgeted. So we could lay this on the table, the same thing.
Well, Mel's done a lot of work to reduce the quantum of funding required and to get it going through the community board. So, yeah, there was the activity management plan one and the 25 million one that I was happy to go into the consultation document.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy for it to go in the consultation document.
There's two other ones I've got related to the river. One is an activity management plan. The other is 25 million. Those ones I was happy to go into the consultation document.
Okay, right. The next one is on page 9, and it is also Councillor Johansson. It is number 76. The council does not introduce off-street parking charges for the Botanic Gardens. Who is the second?
Yeah, I don't think anyone else supports not charging, so I don't think anyone's going to second it unless anyone wants to do it now. But I've checked with people; no one's keen.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
As far as I'm aware.
So it's out.
Okay, so we're rolling over to the next page, and Councillor Fields, number 127 on page 10. Public toilets at Devotional Boat Ramp. Sorry, someone did. You don't have to second him just because you sit next to him, you know. Okay, Councillor Coker.
Was that Melanie?
Yes. Okay, and the last one on page 11 is Councillor Johansson, that the council establish an activity management plan for the Heathcote River and its surrounds.
So can I just clarify, it would not be possible to do that for this LTP. So that would need to be done because you actually need to develop the LTP, you need to go through it in detail, you need to have all the work on asset management. Getting activity plans ready has taken the full year of last year. So we could not do this in time for this LTP.
Was raised when we had the briefing, and I guess this is the frustration of this process, is that we have staff come in and brief us throughout the development of the thing. This was a question that was asked, and then we don't get the information back and we get to this point. But recognising that you can't do it in time for the LTP, is there a way that we could ask staff to report back during the year? We did something similar with the Avon-Otakaro corridor as well.
Yes, so we can provide a report back on how we would go about doing this and the logistics of doing this.
Yeah.
But we...
Thanks.
So no second... are you seconding it or asking?
No.
Done, it's basically out of order by the chair.
Well, it can be done because we did it for the Avon-Otakaro.
No, it can't be.
So we had it over. Yeah, I think it would be best if we came back with advice around
Yeah.
that.
I'm happy for us to get advice around
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so does that take that out
Yeah.
then?
Yep.
All right, and that's the end of those.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify if on the bottom of page 10, number 130 had a seconder? Did I miss that one?
Oh, sorry.
So that one's left lying on the
That's the
table.
one.
Yep, that's correct.
Mary, I'm not sure if the appropriate time is now, just to flag to council staff around Pauline and I's amendment around the rating for renewals, not to discuss it now, but to flag that we'll need something to discuss today based off effectively that same thing with the ecosystem.
Right.
So can we just flag that with the relevant people to come
Yes,
back later on?
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we have John Frizzell ready and waiting. We've got Rupert and Nigel sitting there ready to charged up, ready to go.
So just before we kick off, it may be worth hearing from Russell about what would be the rate impact if these amendments were accepted.
Thanks very much, Mary.
All of what's in front of us, just the ones in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. Through Mr. Mayor. So just looking at citizens and community, so we're looking at if they were all put through as they are in the schedules, that would be a rate impact on year 1 of 0.92, year 2 0.07, 0.12 in year 3, and a decrease of 0.33 in year 4. The main drivers of that is the... Sorry?
Can you
Repeat
run
year
through
4.
those all again and try and speak up if you can?
Be louder. Okay, righto. So if we're just looking at citizens and community, the impact of the rates, if all the options in the schedule were put through as they are, in year 1, that's 0.92%. Year 2, so that's an increase. Year 2 is 0.07, 0.12 increase for year 3, and a negative impact of 0.33, so a reduction in year 4. The main drivers are the bringing forward the ecosystem is about 0.4 of a rate, so we're just talking year 1 now. The Botanic Gardens parking, that would have been 0.31. So that's reducing that. Heathcote River Guidance Plan, as Mary's outlined, that's probably not in. South Library Temporary Facilities, 0.05%, and Community Facilities Network Maintenance Plan, about 0.06% of a rate. So it gives an overall context of where we're sitting. Once these are through, we'll be in a better position. We'll be able to update where that is sitting.
So just to clarify, it's approximately a 1% on rates if every amendment was adopted in year 1.
That's correct.
A question on that then, is the car parking amendment that's now gone, is that included in that figure?
Correct. That was 0.31, so that would reduce that.
Right. So just hang on a minute. So if you finish, Russell, because then we'll get into questions.
Yes.
Per se.
Sorry,
You
yeah.
have? Sorry. So now we will go into questions on the lot. Okay. Anyone's got a question, and this is going to take a wee while. So this is so bear with. So sorry, Councillor Moore.
I'd like to please withdraw 1.1 on page 1. There's further information coming to us very soon before I can know if it's worth being in the draft or not. So if I could please withdraw that.
Okay. Councillor Harrison Hunt. I've got you.
So do we...
Kia ora. This is for public knowledge, Andrew, around particularly the citizens and community part of the draft capital program, around why Riccarton is zero budgeted for communities and parks. Could you explain as to what that could, what the reason is for that?
You're referring to capital.
Yes.
Yes. It's essentially the way the information is being put. A lot of the expenditure in Riccarton sits in the metropolitan framework, but we can do some work without adjusting the plan, without impacting the plan, between now and when we publish the document, to draw down so it's a bit more explicit from a ward basis.
Right.
All the individual there's lots and lots of little things that are scheduled. And so the way it rolled up into the bubble diagram that you have seen It seems to be in the way it was categorised.
Sure.
So there are projects there. We just need to do a bit of work to present them in a slightly more clear way.
Which has its advantages and disadvantages, correct, around the agility of being able to utilise.
Look, the first the first 3 years should be quite clear. The further out you go in terms of trying to be explicit on budgets and projects, the less likely you are to be accurate.
Great. So there is potential of drawing down years 1 to 3 for the public to be able to see that, the visibility of it, as optics matter. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll have a couple more after Phil, but I'll just pass on if that's right.
What I want to do is we've got the three heads of departments there. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. And I'd rather, if it's a question that's related to, say, John or Rupert or Nigel, is we'll get them up. Otherwise, I'll be backwards and forwards all over the place, which it's going to be a wee bit difficult, but that's fine. We should do that. So,
sure.
If we, sorry?
So I was going to say, if we could do them as a block, so if there's, we get Rupert up, who's there with Andrew, and they can do all the part, if you've got all the parts questions, we do them then we'll get John up, who will be able to do all the questions related to community and funding, and then we'll get Nigel up, that'll do anything related to rec and sport and events.
Okay, so shall we, thank you, Rupert. Yep.
If I may, we've only got one library library question. Do you want to knock that one off?
Yeah. Great.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll get Carolyn up.
Oh, library topic rather than question, sorry.
Yeah. Hello, Caroline.
Hi.
So are there any questions about that amendment?
Yeah, Carolyn, do you believe you can sufficiently and adequately service the people of the area if there's not a temporary library facility?
I think we would do our absolute best with the range of alternative options. We have yet to talk through the detail of this with the community board. We've got that scheduled for next week, but we've got a range. It would be not putting it all in one facility. It would be more of a distributed model, and that's what I'm keen to talk through with the board.
Which may also have the upside of introducing some of the regulars there to other facilities that they might not be that aware of.
Yes.
And would it be also fair to say that your library service is probably the most adapted in the entire country for hosting temporary and transitional facilities?
We've had a lot of experience, sadly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClelland, have you got a similar question for Carolyn?
Try it on anyway.
I don't like the sound of that.
Given that you obviously, there'll be a bias towards libraries as part of their overall service delivery. Do you think that the value we would get from a temporary facility versus the additional cost is value for money? Do you think we're getting a small marginal benefit from the temporary facility, or a very large worthwhile benefit given the cost?
I think that's really, in staff's advice here, is just the costs are looking pretty high from our perspective. If there was a really affordable or economical option, and we have had some of those in the past, we've been very fortunate. We've been able to set up in council facilities. The costs are over $1 million at the moment, and that's really just that's a fairly early assessment, so they could be higher than that, which is also sunk costs. So that cost benefit is quite a tricky one, really. Yes, it's a South Library is very much loved by its community, so that would be a change for that community for a temporary period. But the costs at the moment are looking high, and at this stage we do not have, and we've done quite a lot of looking, a feasible economical option.
Councillor Cotter and then Councillor Scandrett.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I see that you've got the money split evenly over the 2 years, 25, 26. Do you need that much in year 25? Are you perceiving, or if it was split slightly less, so it's a less amount in year 25 and greater amount in year 2? In other words, are you going to be ready to spend that money?
I think that's Councillor Coker's your possible split of funds. So you might have things that you can say on that.
Does staff have an answer on whether that
Yes.
money would, if it went ahead, would that level of funding be required in year 2025?
We would. So the short answer from my perspective is we would need pretty much that funding to set up. A lot of the funding is establishment and setup costs, which would be incurred according to the program around the middle of FY25 financial year.
Okay, and just quick, where is the board going to meet while that? Do you know? Does anyone know?
We have a discussion scheduled with the board on the 22nd of February. At this case, the option will be presented for the board to meet default Smith Street, but we'd also invite the board to meet in a number of community locations around the area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Scandrett, please.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that hasn't been discussed is the pressure on staff, because they have been working in a facility. They've been making it look fantastic, but behind the scenes, I know there's been illness with regards to air conditioning and other things. And seeing we've got, Spraydon Library just over 2 k's away, and would be one of the facilities I'd imagine that you would step up because it's next to a key activity area, a park, playground, etc. What would be the pressure on staff to set up a temporary facility?
It is, and I think it's been noted in the amendment staff comments. It is an additional workload. It is something that has been noted. We have done before. We can be prepared for that. It would be probably ideal if we didn't have to, but nevertheless, this is about service provision to the community. So it's something that we would need to plan and factor in, as we do when we do services of this kind.
Thank you. I guess just one more to John Fussell. With regards to filling the gap, if there is a gap, we would be open, or there would be extra support offered to allow the community board to go around the communities that we cover. In the meantime, seeing we probably won't have a home base, so to speak.
Councillor, again, that's something that we would like to discuss with the board in the first instance, 22nd of February, but that would certainly be an option presented to the board, and we would have the capacity within the team to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Could I just clarify what the potential site of a temporary facility would be? Would it be on site there or elsewhere?
So what we've been looking at, the site that we've been looking at and the costings are based on would be relocating to the Cashmere Club.
Gotcha.
Yes, because the new building, so the existing library plan is to demolish that and rebuild on the footprint of the existing library. So the advantage is, of course, the Cashmere Club is very close to the site of the location of the existing library. However, it would appear that need to be a lot of work done to make that suitable for these services.
Understood.
Yeah, and it's not just been advised, and thank you, that's not confirmed. So that's been part of the feasibility work.
And the points here that potential extension of hours, it's raid and customer services provided nearby, they are likely to happen in the absence of temporary facility not going ahead.
So that would be an obvious thing, we believe, to do if the decision was not to do a temporary, would be to increase the hours and redeploy some staff to Spraydon. Absolutely.
Yes. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's always really good advice, which I rely on. In terms of, I just want to clarify, probably more for the public that are interested, can you just talk us through the staffing provision what would occur when effectively that building is sort of shut down and being rebuilt? No one would lose their jobs, and they'd just be redistributed or reallocated to different facilities, wouldn't they?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely right. Yes, they would be. We would want to increase the staffing in the libraries that would be most impacted or affected by it, and that also includes the mobile and outreach service. I think that's something that we just have touched on in our comments here, because for people in the community that have access issues, they might be able to make it just very short distance to their local library, would be left with a gap. We can look at how we actually position the mobile service And we've also could work with potentially with partners, other organisations in the community. So we can put staffing, some of the staff that would normally be in the existing South Library into that area. We would do a bit of a resource map to figure out where we needed to allocate people to.
That's brilliant. So they'd be able to spend more time, I guess, on that front line as opposed to going through the issues of trying to move or set up a temporary facility.
Yes, that's right.
That's
yes, they'd be redeployed temporarily until the new library is built.
Great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Any more questions for Caroline? Have the rest of the day off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Who would you like next?
Rupert,
Rupert?
please. Anyone's got any questions on what Rupert's an expert at? Councillor Templeton, then Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. So this is a kind of general question. It might be Rupert, it might be Andrew, combination of both. There are a few amendments here which, so for example, prioritising various toilets, putting budget on for a toilet facility, Wainui, those kind of ones, where the staff advice is that there's already budget there, it's in a program of work, so the amendment's not really needed, but it could be put. I just want to check that if those amendments don't pass because the staff advice is that the budget's already there, that won't be interpreted as council saying we don't want you to build a toilet in Wainui.
No. No, it's a good question. No, the advice is no amendments required, that the program can cover these projects. And if you take one like Branston, for example, that's come up, it's very clear that whilst structurally our asset management team had advised us that structurally, etc., the buildings are not due for renewal, they're not meeting the demand and level of service, particularly around gender neutral, female sport, etc. So we're at this at this point where we're looking at level of service in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the amendment, the staff responses would try and provide assurance that they will be drawn down out of the program and delivered.
Yeah. But just checking though. So for example, Amendment 8, that funding be put in the 10-year budget for a complete renewal of toilet facilities in Wainui.
Sorry, which number?
Peninsula.
Number 8 was it?
Number 8. So if council votes against that funding be put in the 10-year budget, I just want to check to make sure that you're not going to pull funding out of the budget.
Well, that's certainly not
Funding
the
already
intent.
there. Do you know, just to clarify?
Yep. No, what we've tried to demonstrate is where the funding sits at the program level.
So,
That might
so
be
could I just
so unless-
clarify? So with these ones where there's funding there, if the mover and seconder is prepared to change the amendment to noting that that this thing will be is included in the LTP.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean it's
I just want to make sure that if we vote against putting money specifically on budget, that you're not going to say, oh, they don't want a toilet, and pull it out of the current funding.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, and I think the chief exec's advice is quite clear that if it's noted, it's confirmed.
So
We're currently not noting ones, but
but if the people that have moved and seconded ones where the response is it's on budget, if we change, are you happy if we change that your amendments to noting amendments? Yeah. You're not happy for your.
So just checking, and I do want it just public, so I did check just briefly whether we should just, on the technical thing, I think the advice was to potentially...
The effect of voting no doesn't take money out of a budget that's already there.
Yeah, cool, that's just, need to get that clarified, yeah.
It's just, there's just no need.
But I just wanted to check whether the councillors wanted assurance that it was there. There's a formal noting that it's there. Yeah.
So that remove it out and put them.
The three of them.
Okay. Are we done?
We're done.
Okay, Councillor Harrison Hunt, and then Councillor Donald.
Kia ora, guys. Let's talk about the Church Corner potential of a pocket park first.
Could you give us a number, please?
I'll bring it up. Give me a sec. Yep. Page 2. Sorry. So we have here that there's some work already done. We're talking about the Better Off Fund, which is 75k that the community board is committed to.
Correct. Yep.
In the feedback, it says Parks Unit will complete design consents, etc., with community board allocated funding. I really want to get some clarity on the Better Off Fund that we've put aside for the 75,000. Is that going to be internally administered? As in, are we using our Better Off Fund to pay for council work?
Yes.
So are you changing your work plans already to facilitate that, or are you getting more staff committed to this project?
So the funds that the board have allocated enable us to allocate staff to complete the work on the concept design to bring back to the board, all the cost reporting we need to do to understand what the cost of the build will be. So the answer is yes, that funding is supporting the project. Yeah.
So if the Better Off Fund wasn't there, what would staff be doing now?
Well, you cannot initiate a project without a budget. So
apologies, tough questions, but yeah.
So the board's decision has enabled us to commence the project process.
Okay, so if the board's Better Off funds, our attentions, were to use for capital things that usually don't get funded through us, what would we need to do to potentially use internal OPEX and then use the 75k for capital expenditure such as park benches and things of the sort?
You would have to substitute another project, so you'd have to remove something from the existing budget.
Sure. And what's in the Metro program now in budget line 61782 with your community parks new development, could that be drawn down to facilitate that internal OPEX cost?
That's exactly the process whereby we conceptualise. So we come up with the design, we come up with the cost plan, we know what it's going to cost, and then we draw the budget down.
And this is, again, I'm being a bit political here because it's a community-driven project. But when we're talking about this, then wouldn't it be smart if I drew down off some of the development funds that we see before us in FY 27, 28, 29, and then use that Better Off Fund to go for opportunities that the Better Off Fund was meant for through the community board's decision?
You would have, well, the fund's already been allocated, and so you'd have to go back and rescind your community board decision.
Oh, we definitely, what I'm meaning is the fund's been allocated to the project.
Yes.
But I don't recall it going towards OPEX and consent costs, actually for nothing.
It goes to all project costs, which are human resources, process.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not specifically
so essentially
allocated
it's not
to
specifically aimed at anything.
Yeah.
It's just towards the project itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it was council's, if council did want to use a little bit more of the funds to draw down off these funds instead of creating new ones to fight for an annual plan, does this amendment here give it kudos to be able to do that, is my question.
We'll do them first and then take the votes on the rest.
It can enable that, and it's a bit like the last question though. You're not essentially asking for, staff are advising that you do not need to put more funds on budget.
Yep.
That we draw down from the program level in the outer years to fund that project.
Got you.
Yeah.
So I think
you can draw down more funds now.
Yep.
But the advice I'm trying to give is that until you have certainty on budget, which comes when you have an agreed concept that the board accept with a cost plan, you're not likely to get it right.
Okay.
It's an estimate. And what I'm trying to reassure you is what the staff have provided is from years 27 to 34, that's what sits in the draft plan.
Yep.
And those are funds that can be drawn down and allocated at that time.
Okay.
So you can certainly, you can, using this, you can pass an amendment that those funds are allocated to that project.
Okay.
But it's so early in the process that we literally do not know what.
You haven't even demolished the
cost
buildings.
is.
Okay, I think I'm sorry to be really difficult and ask really tough questions, Andrew, but
fine.
In terms of
You're very good at it.
the way that it's administered, we know that the longer we wait, the more costly it's going to be, the more we have to request. If the site's being demolished and we've got a blank canvas already, instead of actually waiting for us to fight for it in, say, FY27, that the plot's ready to go, essentially. And I'm trying to get some action on it as soon as it's knocked down, that we put in a park straight away because it's the cheapest option. Does that make sense?
Look, it
And
does.
is that possible?
It does. The project is active. The project's underway, so it's on a pathway.
Okay.
Of course, everyone has been very mindful of putting together a deliverable program. So every project drags resource.
Yep.
There's a finite amount of resource. So we've just got to be mindful of making sure that delivery is efficient, because if delivery is not efficient, that's where costs can become a problem.
Right.
Okay. The next, if it's all right, Phil.
It gets dark at 9 o'clock.
Is around. These are really big projects for the community. The next one's around the Sockburn Park redesign, and I really appreciate staff coming back to me with that. And this has been something that's been a long time coming, and I thank the previous council for the work that they did on getting rid of the baby pool, at least. And what we're seeing here is we are going to be committing 25k to this. And are you telling...
Councillor, do you have a number just so they can...
Sorry,
put it on the
apologies.
screen?
Number 6, page 3. So what I'm seeing here is you're seeing that there's going to be design work done in FY26 with the delivery to be done in FY29. Is that a line item, and do I need to solidify it, put it in concrete to be able to make sure it's done?
No, there is a current line item there already, and the investigations are currently underway. There's a lot of site investigations before we can put to that next stage.
Okay. So that's within the Metro budget, which won't be visible to the community.
Correct.
Just making sure.
Not in that tool, but we're going to make sure it is.
Great. No, that's all my questions. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
Oh, thank you very much. Councillor Donovan.
I just have a question around the way that some of the program level budget will be allocated.
It'll be really good for my meetings.
Because there's quite a few requests for toilets and changing sheds and things. So I just am curious to know, with that unallocated budget, if there are other toilets across the city that might be a higher priority, but there's no unallocated budget left in future years, what are our options? Because how do we see these in the list of toilets? And
Generally, the toilets are rated on condition ratings through structural and different things, but we're trying to put a new lens on the way we assess the buildings, not just taking the consideration the structure of the building, but are they fit for purpose? Are they, doing the right thing for the community? So we do need to go back and have a look at those future years and how we apply that, but things will probably be a moving beast with that in that space.
so I guess what I'm still not clear on is if we say we want to prioritise particular assets, but we don't have a clear view of what the total asset condition is across the city, how do we know we're prioritising the right assets?
All the buildings have current condition assessments.
Yep.
But these don't have that. We don't have that information.
No, yeah. So you'll be familiar with the process we initiated last annual plan of bringing the renewals program to the community boards so that they can look at the renewals program and prioritise, help with the prioritisation. That's the process where you'll be able to highlight community sort of led initiatives around, in particular, exactly what Rupert was saying around, well, the technical report might say it's structurally sound, but it's not meeting the needs of the community. That is the mechanism. Yep.
Great. So I guess final question is, because I support that approach, I think it's great, because I think it's important for community boards to give feedback because they have a closer eye on these things. And I'm not necessarily saying comment on any of the projects, but in future years, community boards might struggle to...
Which amendment is it?
Sorry, I'm just talking about, because there's about 3 or 4, so it's just general feedback.
Which ones?
Which one?
Okay, so we've got 6, 8, there's a changing shed. What was number 2? But it was just a point of clarification around the process. So the final one is, if in future years community boards are looking at their assets and saying we want to get this one upgraded, will there be any budget?
Well, there is program level budget, and that's what we're saying. That's unallocated. There's a whole different raft of mechanisms where the budgets are considered. Some of those are development plans that the boards have put through and approved, and so we take a more comprehensive approach to the park. And in other cases, it might be driven by individual specific needs. I guess what we're highlighting in particular around public toilets and in particular change facilities around some of our sporting parks is a lot of these things were built quite a number of years ago and the dynamics are different now. So we do need to do some planning work, and I would suggest that that's a sensible way for us to bring a report to community boards that just articulates where our structures are and perhaps where they should be and what a plan might be to move in that direction.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can we get that back before the end of the long-term plan?
Okay,
Is that a...
yep, thank
No,
you.
we
We've got to move
can't
on.
do that level of analysis in this time frame. It would have to be an annual plan or future plan consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Coker.
It's quite it's a complex piece of work, and it requires a lot of stakeholder input.
Thanks. So I had there's 3 questions I've got. So one is page 1, number 3, the bottom. So the funding for the pest plant management plan. Do you have is there a finance comment on the rates impact of that?
Rates impact would have to be Russell, sorry, or Bruce. This is number 3, page 1. An additional 120,000 per annum from. Oh, sorry. I'm presuming it's not 1 year. In the amendment.
This amendment is for 1 year, but ideally it would be per annum. But yeah, we can get in 1 year.
120,000 of OPEX. 0.02. Approximately 0.02%.
And then my second
And that would be,
was,
oh, sorry, that's on top of the 0.91, obviously, that Russell mentioned at the beginning.
Carol.
So next one is page 10, number 86. This is the one about the street trees, which has been a bit of work. Again, is there any comment there on the rates impact of this? Noting that Sam would have voted for the one where we actually have funding.
Do you want to cover this? Or okay. Yeah, this is a relatively new one, so we've only seen this morning. So we certainly agree with all the objectives that have been listed. I mean, they're clearly objectives directly from the urban forest plan. We would have to come back to you with more information on what that might look like in terms of being able to deliver and what the costs might be. I mean, if possible, we'll try and do some early work for the June period, but it may be an annual plan timing. But it's very much in line with the urban forest and the objectives of the urban forest that council's already adopted.
Yeah, just in this is sort of adjacent to this, I guess, but it does say in that urban forest plan that targeting new planting projects in areas with low canopy cover is currently funded, but is that just for parks like we already put in? It's not, it's for the green spaces we have, not talking about the street corridor. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but the street corridor sits within the infrastructure group, so that would be a question for Lynette.
Okay.
So can I just check with you, would you like this one, given that you don't have the information today, asking for a report that we will hopefully get back in time for June?
Yeah.
We can certainly try our best. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be good to get some emotion on this.
Right.
And
yeah,
then
sorry.
one more
Sorry.
question. This is sort of related to, it's more of a general question, but for parks. With the program level funding that we have, and then it's drawn down for projects, and then goes to community boards to make decisions around the sort of scope of those projects. If a community board wasn't happy with the options that they had provided, would it be a possibility for them to be sending a resolution back to council to then look at the budget of that?
So if I
Because
address
at the
the
moment
budget,
we have no clarity around budget.
Yeah. So if I address the budget question first, because the budget's been set at a value that we believe is deliverable. Affordability is a question, I guess, for elected members. So that there's a quantum in there that we can deliver. And Parks, frankly, has had to lift its game over the last 3 years in its deliverability, and it has done that. And there is a bit of stretch in the proposed long-term budget for Parks as it is drafted to continue to improve its deliverability. We believe there's enough budget at the program level to work directly with community boards and draw down to the projects that they would like to see delivered. But we've requested through that process, same process I was talking about before, that we don't mess with year one because we're usually in flight, and that the boards start to help us reprioritise the year 2 and 3. That is the process we would like to continue to develop so that it meets the board's needs.
So the main thing I'm wanting is not a repeat again of what happened at Hallsville, Hornby, Riccarton, around their playgrounds. That's what I'm aiming for.
Sure, yeah. And we're very aware that playgrounds are a particularly important matter. We have given a commitment in one of the amendment feedbacks that we will have a network plan ready for the council and community boards to consider by December 24, so that we can make it a little less grey about what the future looks like for the different communities when we start looking at the next annual plan. So that's the body of work we'd like to initiate to support that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hairstock, please.
Mr Mayor, mine have been covered, thank you. Melanie's covered them, thanks.
All good. I've got a wee question. Sorry, Councillor Cotter. No, you go.
John Fulsell, please, on community facilities.
Have we
Was
finished?
it just, oh,
Have we finished?
parks?
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Johansson.
We'll finish parks. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to check, like, where certain things have been cut and then things have been added to a program level, what's the opportunity through the process to put the program level budget back into those ones that have been cut?
So can we just clarify which amendment you're questioning?
Well, it's a bit like to the point of the like Sockburn, for example, which I support.
Which number is it?
Which number, mate?
6. Yeah, page 3.
Number 6.
So like, I guess what I'm interested to understand is like, we've got other projects like Bexley Reserve, which is being proposed quite a significant budget cut, but then we've got new program budgets coming on for new parks, and I'm just wondering what the ability is for us as we go through the process to use the program budget to
So just to clarify, we are discussing and debating the amendments at the moment. If you've got a procedural question outside that, we could discuss that at a lunch break.
Okay, sorry. So
because it is about, unless you've got an amendment.
If it's not in front of us.
yeah, so what I'm trying to understand is if we can bring forward the proposed budget, this is A6B, Community Parks, New Development, Draft Long-Term Plan. If we can bring forward that budget for Sockburn, what is the impact on other park developments that we have that are short of budget? Can we bring forward, if we approve this, it's kind of to me saying you can use that program budget to put it to a discrete project. Is that kind of how we should read it?
So do you said 86? 86 is about the urban tree forest plan.
No, it's the amendment's called number 6.
Number 6.
There's the proposed amendment A6B agrees to bring forward the proposed budget from 61782 program community parks new development in the LTP, and then it lists kind of where the money's coming in, right?
So to clarify, you're asking the team what is
we
the
can answer that
consequence of,
question.
of passing this one?
So in relation to Sockburn Park, that budget was already explicitly allocated. So it hasn't come from any other budget. So it hasn't impacted other budgets.
Right. So that's a specific line item for Sockburn Park that's already in the LTP that we're just moving forward. Okay. Maybe the wording and the advice probably is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Might not
Thank
be
you.
clear.
Councillor Cotter, did you have a question? No, you did it.
So
Councillor Henstock, please.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was one that I just wanted to get some clarity on, and it's in relation to amendment number 127 from Councillor Fields. You may have dealt with it before when we were talking about the toilets. I appreciate that there's no funding allocated to the toilets at devotionals, but is it possible for there to be an investigative, some work done to assess the need and to scope it out within your current budgets, please?
There's always scope to investigate, yes, but it doesn't need to be an amendment in our view.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have we? Yes, Councillor Johansson.
So I've just gone to the tool that we're told is really good to use for our projects, and I've just searched Sockburn, and there's no Sockburn Park renewal project. So
I can't comment on the tool, and that's what I was referring to before, that the way things are being categorised and carried into the tool, there seems to be a bit of an anomaly that projects that are drawn down have somehow.
I mean,
Andrew advised he'll look at drawing down years
we're
1
going
to
to look
3
at
to
it
make it
behind the
visible.
scenes. We can't solve this in the room.
Okay, yeah, so that's a procedural stuff. So if there's a resolution, if the advice is it's there and there's a resolution confirming it's there, you can be pretty confident it's going to be in the budget.
Right, okay. Just one small question from me. Just the pocket park that Councillor Harrison Hunt's talking about, that $75,000 is after it's demolished. So there's an empty paddock and we're spending $75,000 at this stage, at a minimum probably, on from there on up. That's
Correct.
fine. It seems for a seat and a bit of asphalt. Okay. Yeah, well, there is the money. Why do we have to consent for a bit of grass and a seat is my next question, but we'll work on that. Okay, so that's all the questions of Rupert. Thank you very much. Who's next? John? We'll leave you to last, Nigel. Yeah, I will just interrupt. Okay, has anyone got any? Councillor Templeton.
Excuse me.
Kia ora, sorry, this is a question on number 57. So currently, the staff advice is that, let me see, the Community Facilities Network Plan provides for the managed decline of community facilities over time, and a change in approach would cost money. But the actual wording in the Community Facilities Network Plan says that that's a default position because we haven't been budgeting enough money, rather than it's a deliberate choice we've made to allow our facilities to decline. And there's a subtle difference there. But also, community boards and communities aren't aware of the specific facilities that we are currently managing the decline of that would then end up not being fit for use. So I'm wondering, do we know which facilities those are? Are you able to let us know which facilities are currently not being maintained to a standard that would mean that eventually they would have to close and not be used by communities?
I don't have the list offhand. But we can look at the network and provide information. But I don't have them here. Usually, when a facility is coming to the end of its life, we engage with the community board and we look to council for a decision on a disposal process. So I guess one in the current view would be Gilberthorpe's Road.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, they come to the end of their life because we haven't been maintaining them to an appropriate standard because the budgets haven't been there to start with. Is that right?
No,
For the last several
not
decades?
entirely. That's one factor. A community facility will come to the end of its useful life for a whole range of reasons.
Yeah. So the initial advice we got before I put the amendment up only talked about the OPEX that would be needed. And the latest advice on the actual amendment is that there's CapEx required as well. Do we know if the rates impact provided is just the OPEX, which is the amendment, or if it's including the cost of the CapEx that was recommended by staff as well, if the amendment was to be put through?
I'd have to ask Russell. I'll probably have to ask you that question.
I'd just like to, one thing I'd just like to do, I'll just interrupt things for a moment. Today marks a year since Cyclone Gabriel. It devastated communities along the North Island's east coast, especially Hawke's Bay and Te Rāwhiti. At the moment, right now, there is a commemoration service happening across the Hawke's Bay to remember the people who passed away. We know Mother Nature can be a tough beast. Here in Christchurch, we know it. And as a sign of respect, I'd like you to stand for our friends in the North Island. Sorry, Karen.
The answer to Councillor Templeton's question is the rates impact is calculated from the OPEX and CAPEX perspective, so it's the total.
Thanks. That would mean that we could change the amendment to include both rather than just the OPEX. Is that right? Yep. So that those facilities could be maintained.
The advice that if you wish the intent of the amendment to be achieved, you would need the capital component.
Okay, thanks. And is it possible to brief community boards and councillors on the forward work program and plans for community facilities ahead of the adoption of the long-term plan? Because that would allow us to make a more informed decision on the choices being made about facilities maintenance. Yeah. So looking at how all that's done, the facilities that are currently in managed decline, and the work that needs doing on the various facilities across the city.
To answer that question, I would like to engage the Chief Executive and the long-term plan team, understand the requests for reports that have come out, get a handle on our priorities, and then get back to you on whether that was possible or not. So it really depends on the priorities. Can I just clarify
the question? I think that you would potentially asking for boards to be briefed so they're able to put in a submission to the... Is that correct?
Not necessarily for a submission, because that will be quite soon, I think. But even... So councillors also make up part of the boards, and discussions with the boards would help inform the council decision making as well. But it's important, even if it's not the... Well, boards would need to be informed about forward work programs for community facilities in their areas. But as a council, I think we need to know which facilities are being maintained to a higher standard, which ones are in managed decline, those kind of things, so that we can make appropriate decisions on the budget, if that makes sense.
So it could be a briefing of council as opposed to a briefing of all the community boards?
Both would need to happen at some stage, but for the budgeting for the LTP, I think the most important one is the council.
My concern is the capacity to deliver amongst other priorities, and I'd just like to establish that before making a commitment.
Yeah, it bothers me that, so the default position is that we're just letting some facilities decline without talking about that as governance or with our communities. And so my preference is that we put enough money on budget to maintain our facilities. to appropriate standard. And what was advised was even, 178 would be to a minimum standard, and we're not even doing that currently. So, thanks.
Right, Councillor Cotter.
The updated schedule that we've been given today has got a very different rate impact figure on my amendment number 56 on page 7 regarding the 10 Shirley Road. And so the schedule that I had yesterday stated a 0.04 increase in financial year 1. That's now reading 0.01. So I'm happy with that, so I no longer need to have that amendment. Because I was going to ask John Purcell if we needed all of that money in the first year, we might be able to reduce that 0.04. It's now reading 0.01.
Okay.
So,
Number 56 is withdrawn.
yes, thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and if I could just get you to double check the figures again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Henstock, then Councillor Kewen.
Thank you. I've just got a follow on from the question.
Oh, no, hang on. No, don't withdraw my amendment. I was going to amend my amendment. I no longer
I'm
need to amend my
sorry.
amendment. I'm retaining the amendment
You
because the
replayed
figure's
that
different. Yeah, nearly. Did you understand?
Not at all.
So do you need any further clarification?
So that's a
Leave the
noting.
amendment as it is.
So it's
Thank
a
you.
noting one as well. It's a noting or confirming.
No, you don't have to note anything, it's fine. Just leave it as it is.
Leave it as, okay.
Number 56 stays the same.
So-
Thank you.
So that's
Councillor Henstock, please.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question from Councillor Templeton's questions in respect of number 57. I note that the staff comment says that it's inconsistent with the current levels of service and inconsistent with our policy. You've put the alternative forward, which Councillor Templeton commented on. Is the alternative still inconsistent with our levels of service and inconsistent with our policies? And what is the rating impact of that alternative? And is that information available for us today?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Councillor Templeton was referencing to number 57 in relation to the facilities maintenance. And the staff comment that's before us in our schedules says that the proposed amendment in its original form is inconsistent with the levels of service and inconsistent with the community's facilities network plan, and that if it were adopted, it's acting in a manner inconsistent with our policies. Now, in the same comments, we're also being given an alternative, which has been provided by staff. And Councillor Templeton referenced that, where we can have an opportunity to optimise the whole of life cost of the facilities at $178,489 per annum. My question is the alternative still inconsistent with our levels of service, still inconsistent with our community facilities network plan, and inconsistent with our policy?
The alternative, in our opinion, is not inconsistent because the 178,000 merely provides for additional scheduled maintenance actions, for example, clearing down pipes, washing down buildings, that will preserve the life of assets to a certain extent. So it's not inconsistent, it's just a little additional service.
And can that little additional service be covered in your existing budgets, or will there be a rating impact?
There will be a rating impact, it's outside existing budgets.
Can that information be made available for us today?
178.
0.02.
0.02 in addition. Ongoing.
In whatever year you start.
Yeah.
I wonder whether Councillor Templeton will be prepared to push that out to beyond the next rating year to alleviate some of the pressure and perhaps start it after that.
After a question. So when we're not doing things like clearing drain pipes and that kind of stuff, do we risk additional capital costs and other maintenance, reactive maintenance? Because that's what it says in the facilities network plan.
Yeah, the purpose of that scheduled maintenance program is to preserve the building's life. Example, we wash down weatherboard paintwork to stop salt damage. So the more actions you do, the greater the life of the building to a point.
So if people would be more comfortable putting the scheduled maintenance stuff on budget to get them to a minimum standard, so they're 178,000, and also have a briefing on which facilities are being declined over time, that kind of stuff, without putting the extra capex and additional opex on at this stage, just the small amount might be the way forward.
Oh, okay, so that's noting, but that's, so it's not a...
Just leave it at 178, but also have the briefing so we can make an informed decision on the other stuff.
Okay. Victoria?
Appreciating what Councillor Templeton is saying, but I'm interested to know whether you think that current budget provision is sufficient for us to adequately maintain cost of life of these facilities, or whether this additional sum is actually needed at the moment. So I'm interested in your comments on that.
The sum on budget at the moment, prompted by the plan confirmed in the current 2021-31 LTP, will achieve the declining asset trajectory. The additional sum of 178,000 will contribute to preserving the life of our existing assets. The information provided to Councillor Templeton's amendment on reversing the decline is still apt. So the 178,000 is outside budget, but it will make a difference and it will preserve the life of our existing stock to a certain extent. It is money well spent.
Okey-doke. Right. Moving right along. Councillor Johansson, please.
Thanks. Just on the facilities amendment.
Which one, buddy?
Yeah, 57. Yeah.
Oh, that
So,
one.
just wondering what confidence we can have in the program budgets, given the asset management maturity assessment said that we didn't have no documentation was observed which outlines how renewals are determined and planned, and no documented process to enable long-term planning of renewals. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, because I did raise this through the process, is at what stage can we have confidence as a council that we understand enough about our asset management maturity for parks, facilities, and recreation facilities, given that they were listed as basic in that assessment and given the concerns that were raised?
So we can answer the question about Amendment 57, which is the one that's on the table to debate. So, John?
Community facilities has an asset management plan. Community facilities by nature are quite straightforward, as everyone will notice who's been in there. So we have a reasonably good degree of confidence, based on experience and working with a good contractor, that our figures are appropriate. They are not complex assets, and I would have confidence.
But
Thank you.
So I guess the question is because
You had the question.
I want to support the amendment, but I'm worried that the quantum is not sufficient based on the absence of the data that we know in terms of our community facilities. I hear what staff are saying, but we've also had an independent report.
Well, staff is saying that the money that they're talking about here is enough. Is that what you're saying, John?
And also you've got a good understanding of the conditions of the facilities.
But the asset management report that we got, like the one that got done by an independent person that was auditing us, has said that
So
we
can you
don't.
just clarify that's the difference of it being
Can I just
in
make
the
a comment
tool?
on that? And
Yeah.
it's important for councillors to understand that having a basic level of information is appropriate in some cases. And what John was saying is we have appropriate information for this type of asset. You don't have to have high level asset detailed information that you might need for a wastewater treatment plant that you need for a community.
I understand that. To quote from the report,
yes.
there are gaps in the core asset data fields, including condition, age, capacity,
John is
and data accuracy is not being assessed.
John has answered the question. I dare say we spent more than 178 grand on the report. Just saying. Right. So who have we got?
Surely we're
Now, Councillor Kewen.
Yeah, so on the facilities maintenance, are any of the buildings deteriorating because of not doing that work?
Not doing what work?
Well, the work that would be added on. Like, so you've got a building, it's been there 30 years, and you're expecting it's going to do another 50, so an 80-year building or a 100-year building. Does not washing that paint mean it won't, or does it just mean when you go to paint it next time, the paint looks a bit more manky, but it's not peeling and there's creating rot and things like that? Are we running our buildings into the ground like it's kind of sounding, or are we not?
Those are about 10 questions there. I can reiterate my advice. $178,000 buys a number of additional scheduled maintenance opportunities, which will contribute to preserving the life of our portfolio. So it is a reasonably appropriate investment should council wish to make it. The cost to maintain the portfolio in a condition that it was originally intended to be provided is detailed in the response to Councillor Templeton's amendment.
So then, if it was needed maintenance, wouldn't it be in the schedule, and then you drop off stuff like internal paint jobs, which never extend the life of a building, or the carpet replacing, leave it another 10 or 20 years. I mean, eventually it goes back round and it's trendy again.
Yeah, Councillor Kearn, I now see the question. Those decisions are made all the time, and often decisions are prioritised to preserve the life of the asset for safety, for sanitary and compliance.
I've got a mix of this one is put in citizens, but it's sort of infrastructure to it. It's around transport, but it's also and communities. It's number 58 on page 8. Would it be better suited for the infrastructural questions with Lynette and maybe Jim Dione?
Tyler's just talking about this one. So we're not sure if it just transport.
I do, yeah. Right. It's a pilot project for safer streets until we see what central government do.
Okay, so because we're voting on it now, we probably need to get you an answer.
What was your question, sorry?
Exactly.
So I apologise to Lynette. I actually sort of really wanted Gemma in the room if possible, but it's around. We're saying that we could use internal OPEX potentially, otherwise it's going to be a rates impact around the pilot projects, but it's mainly surrounding the Safer Streets implementation.
So we better.
So you see it's a hybrid between citizens and community and transport.
So we'll carry it over to infrastructure. We won't
Straight away.
consider it now.
Let's have lunch here, because then the right person's at the right place.
Great.
So, righto.
Thanks.
So,
Mr. Mayor, we've finished questions. Can we just take a 5-minute break before we head into debate?
we certainly can.
No.
No. We're doing debate, and then we're having an hour for lunch. No.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.